It is Friday, January 15th, 2016. This is your morning edition on I-24 News, and coming up later today, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz duke it out on the stage of the latest GOP debate in South Carolina, which wrapped a few hours ago, and the Republican race is, as usual, on fire. The Revenant and Mad Max lead the yet again all-white nominee list for the Academy Awards, and protests are underway on the web. And later on the show, a look at the top moments of the world leaders this week on Instagram, our favorite segment. We love it. Stay with us. You love it too. Good morning. I'm Yael Lavie, and we begin today in Charleston, South Carolina, where the sixth GOP debate for the 2016 presidential elections just wrapped up. And it delivered as expected, with the highlights being the Trump-Cruz smackdown on stage, trading jabs. Now, while there has been plenty of animosity between Trump and most of his rivals, the billionaire businessman and Cruz have been on largely friendly territory for much of the campaign season. That changed, however, as the polls in Iowa tightened ahead of the February 1 caucuses, putting both the leading candidates, Cruz and Trump, head-to-head, almost. Cruz and Trump were joined on the primetime stage by Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, and John Kasich. Pressure is mounting for someone from the rest of the field to emerge as the clear alternative to Trump and Cruz. Christie and Rubio engaged in a tough exchange as they both try to dominate the establishment lane of the party. Above all, this new period begins with fewer candidates on the main debate stage. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky and Carly Fiorina were excluded yesterday, and the Iowa and New Hampshire contests are likely to shrink the field even more. Now, the winnowing allows more time for the top candidates to attack and counterpunch, with at least the possibility of more substance and less show, one would hope, as some would argue. Many Republicans are expecting the nominating fight to narrow to just three candidates: Mr. Trump, Mr. Cruz, and a representative from the so-called establishment wing of the party. Time will tell. For now, let's take a look at what came down in Charleston a short while ago.
The first GOP debate of this election year began with across-the-board attacks on President Obama.
This guy is a petulant child.
Any nation that captures our fighting men and women will feel the full force and fury of the United States of America.
Just 7 candidates made the cut for the primetime showdown. Ted Cruz defending himself on 2 fronts tonight from a new report that he didn't tell the Federal Exchange Commission about $1 million loan from Wall Street banks for his Senate campaign.
And yes, I made a paperwork error disclosing it on one piece of paper instead of the other. But if that's the best hit the New York Times has got, they better go back to the well.
Then a sparring match with Donald Trump about his accusations that the Canadian-born Cruz might not legally be allowed to serve as president.
I mean, you have great constitutional lawyers that say you can't run.
I'm not going to be taking legal advice from Donald Trump.
You don't have to. Take it from Lawrence Stroud.
I hate to interrupt this episode of Court TV, but the real...
Trump claiming Governor Nikki Haley actually paid him a compliment this week.
I'm very angry because our country is being run horribly, and I will gladly accept the mantle of anger.
Cruz not backing down.
Not a lot of conservatives come out of Manhattan.
When the World Trade Center came down, I saw something that no place on earth could have handled more beautifully, more humanely than New York.
With me in studio is I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Good morning to you. Also with the spokesperson for the American Democratic Party in Israel, Sheldon Shore. Good morning to you. We can't do this also without I-24 News contributor and host of The Road to the White House, Ami Kaufman. But, yes, hold on. I know I'm excited. Let's go live to Charleston, where we're staying up late. To join us is Chairman of the Republicans abroad in Israel, Mark Zell. Good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Yael. It's a great morning from Charleston. Just came from the debate.
And that
fantastic.
And no, it's fantastic that you came from the debate and you're on the phone with us. And I want to ask you, Mark, your take on the debate that just wrapped up.
Well, I can say, with the exception of Ben Carson, all the candidates did very well. I'd say Trump also held himself out quite well this evening. The arena, the Coliseum, was absolutely packed for the main debate, which went over 2 hours. It was absolutely incredible, and the electricity was stimulating. But I will say this: the interchange between Trump and Cruz was something that I didn't expect to play out the way it had. And Cruz took some lumps tonight. This is a general consensus here. He had been keeping things fairly tame with Trump over the course of the campaign, and then lately came out attacking him. His statement about New York values and Trump's response, which you just played on the air, really played out to the benefit of Trump. Cruz took a major hit on this SEC disclosure issue, and in the tete-a-tete with Marco Rubio, he also ended up taking some lumps. So I think that we're going to see that play out in the, I don't know, in the ballot in the polls, but on the voting in Iowa and in New Hampshire.
Right.
The other guy the other candidates, like for example Jeb Bush, did better than he's done in other debates. Not great, but he held his own.
Okay.
As did John Kasich from Ohio, who impressed me. I was actually sitting with the candidates' families, with Chris Christie's wife and son, who's a student at Princeton, and also the Kasich team, and I really had a fantastic vantage point right at the foot of the stage with all the candidates and their advisors and families. So it was quite exciting.
Were you sitting next to Trump's wife?
I'm sorry?
Were you sitting next to Donald Trump's wife?
No, I was sitting. I did have a picture. I have a picture with Donald Trump's son, Eric. I must say, I hadn't met him before. Really a fine young man. Made a very strong impression on me. I hadn't expected that either. I had a chance to meet a lot of these folks. So anyway, it was very, very interesting, and I think for the party, it was a great night. I'm really very, very encouraged by that. And I'm looking forward to finally get some real votes on February 1st, and then in the New Hampshire primary, where things will begin to shake out.
But Mark, if you can stay with us, because not that we're going to beg to differ, maybe we will, but we're going to try and take a look, a tighter look, so to speak, at this debate. And, when it comes to the debate last night, first of all, Sheldon Shore with us in studio, I just want to ask you, you're looking at it, it's coming down at the Republican Party, the rival party, so to speak. Your take on it as a Democrat, one would say.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to see that there are 7 people that I will not vote for because none of them showed really good leadership qualities. Among other things, parts of the debate was on a high school level. I mean, when Chris Christie says that the president is a petulant child, I mean, that's just a pot shot being insulting. He said something like, "We'll kick your rear end out of office." I mean, that is really, really low, and that's childish. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No. Many would argue that, and I want to direct all of our attention, including our ears, for those joining us from Charleston. The big debate, Cruz and Trump, basically was the birthing issue. And let's take a look at what happened on stage last night when it comes to that topic.
Back in September, my friend Donald said that he had his lawyers look at this from every which way. And there was no issue there. There was nothing to this birther issue. Now, since September, the Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have. And I recognize that Donald is dismayed that his poll numbers are falling in Iowa.
In Iowa now, as you know, Ted, in the last 3 polls, I'm beating you. So, you shouldn't misrepresent how well you're doing with the polls. You don't have to say that. In fact, I was all for you until you started doing that, because that's a misrepresentation. Number 1. Number 2, this isn't me saying it. I don't care. I think I'm going to win fair and square. I don't have to win this way. Here's the problem. We're running. He does great. I win. I choose him as my vice presidential candidate, and the Democrats sue because we can't take him along for the ride. I don't like that, okay? The fact is, and if for some reason he beats the rest of the field, if for some, see, they don't like that. They don't like that. No, they don't like that he beats the rest of the field because they want me. But if for some reason, Neil, he beats the rest of the field, I already know the Democrats are going to be bringing a suit You have a big lawsuit over your head while you're running, and if you become the nominee, who the hell knows if you can even serve in office?
I just, speaking of polls, and this is to everybody, but by the way, I'm incredibly jealous of Mark because it looks like such a good show, folks, right?
And
we're sitting here and, he's there and it's the party. But looking at the polls, if we're looking at the last New York Times CBS poll, the Republican race, and the numbers are still quite jarring because the Trump lead, you can't really ignore 36-19 of Ted Cruz, which makes one think that, that's going to be really, really hard to...
That's a national poll.
It's a national poll, but it's going to be hard to, look at these numbers going into those caucuses.
But it's very important to look at Iowa, where it is basically a statistical tie.
It's a statistical
sometimes
tie.
Trump leads, sometimes Cruz leads. It's a tie there. And also in New Hampshire for them as well. But it's also a statistical tie for Bernie and Hillary Clinton. That's what's exciting about Iowa right now for both parties.
And both parties.
And both of them, both Iowa and New Hampshire, will set at least a trend, or at least a feeling of a trend. That is why for all of the candidates, and specifically Trude and Trude.
But Iowa voters does not represent New York voters, California, Texas, Florida, etc.
In many ways, and we know which way that goes. But I have this feeling, even though I can't see that Mark Zill really wants to say something. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to like to bring reality to the television show. Your guests just have no conception of what's going on here.
Okay.
So look, no one knows what's happening in Iowa. I mean, Iowa is a set of caucuses. People, I was talking to the state chairman of the Iowa Republican Party. She was sitting next to us. I mean, she said they have no clue what's going to happen in Iowa, and the reason is because the system is so complex, and it requires a ground game that only a relatively few number of candidates has. So we don't know what's going on in Iowa. In New Hampshire is a more conventional primary, but even there, things are really up in the air.
No, really.
And Trump's lead. Look, the whole thing about Trump is this. The feeling here in the party is that, and this is that he may have a 50% chance of winning the nomination. That's it. I spent most of the day with the Republican National Committee Standing Rules Committee planning for a contested convention in July in Cleveland, where they're now debating about all the rules about what's going to happen on the second, third, fourth ballots. I mean, it is absolutely intriguing. As far as Sheldon's comment about childishness, I mean, the Democratic race is a real sad situation, and their main candidate, Hillary Clinton, who was the focus of everybody's comments tonight at the debate, is a candidate in real trouble, and she's got problems with the law. She's got problems with her image, and she's losing in New Hampshire, and she's losing in Iowa. I mean, she's got a problem. So don't come up to me about the childishness. The Democrats have a problem with their candidate. We've got a real interesting race over here. I'm just electrified. I mean, I'm surrounded by 300 or 400 or a couple thousand Republican activists here. I mean, it's just amazing. And everybody says, whoever the candidate is, we're going to be behind them, and we're going to take the Democrats. It's going to be unless they get some new blood in the Democratic race. Very interesting.
No, it's interesting, and to tell you the truth, I mean, we're loving the campaign from here, even though we're having a lot more fun than we're having. But just to move this along a little bit, because we're looking at also other issues that were discussed yesterday that are on top of the American public's agenda, and one may say the world, and that would be national security, and that would be the criticism that we heard towards the Obama administration, which we expect. And let's take a listen.
President Obama is preparing to send $100 billion or more to the Ayatollah Khamenei. And I'll tell you, it was heartbreaking. But the good news is the next commander-in-chief is standing on this stage. And I give you my word, if I am elected president, no serviceman or servicewoman will be forced to be on their knees, and any nation that captures our fighting men and women will feel the full force and fury of the United States of America.
We are not the world's policemen, But we need to stand up and be ready. And the problem, Maria, is that the military is not ready either. We need to rebuild our military, and this president has let it diminish to a point where tin pot dictators like the mullahs in Iran are taking our Navy ships. It is disgraceful, and in the Christie administration, they would know much, much better than to do that.
Barack Obama does not believe that America is a great global power. Barack Obama believes that America is an arrogant global power that needs to be cut down to size. And that's how you get a foreign policy where we cut deals with our enemies like Iran, and we betray our allies like Israel, and we gut our military, and we go around the world like he has done on 10 separate occasions and apologized for America.
Hillary Clinton would be a national security disaster. Think about it. She wants to continue down the path of Iran, Benghazi, the Russian reset, Dodd-Frank, all the things that have gone wrong in this country. She would be a national security mess.
And everybody's going to get a chance to speak, but before we start, what a feat, what a present for the GOP debate to have the Iranian debacle happen 2 seconds before that goes on. When it comes to foreign policy, though, Top.
Well, yeah, there's one thing that the GOP candidates unite upon, and that is Obama's failure, and specifically in foreign policy. By the way, Obama was mentioned 55 times in the debate, more than any other word in the debate, and Rubio started blaming Obama for betraying Israel, probably one of the small mentions that Israel did have during the debate, and Cruz immediately ducked the debate's first question about economy by bringing up that debacle of the 10 U.S. soldiers who were temporarily detained by Iran. But that, of course, this is a given that the GOP will be focusing on foreign policy and has been focusing on foreign policy since in domestic policy their talking points are much more controversial and much less in line with the general U.S. public. The conservative views in foreign policy, in the war against terror, when you're talking about ISIS, are much more compatible to the general public opinion than on domestic issues such as Planned Parenthood or economy, which you see that there are much more conservative than the general public.
Than the general public, but Sheldon, yes.
Yeah, no, I just think that they're, especially Christie, was totally irresponsible. The event that happened in Iran was a victory, I think, a very good example of what the president did with diplomacy. Within 24 hours, these people who had invaded Iranian space were released by mistake, but they were released. And this is a credit for. Christie would have had us going in, bombing them because of our error in bombing. I mean, it's totally insane. And this is the same sort of cowboy diplomacy which brought us Iraq and Afghanistan.
But still, the optics of the soldiers surrendering, that is just the best visuals that the GOP can get for its campaign.
And again, I'm sensing physically that Mark Zell wants to jump in. Mark, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I mean, Sheldon has his head up the proverbial orifice. I mean, with all due respect, I mean, what happened with the seizure of the American sailors exactly at the time of Obama's State of the Union address, and these people, I don't know if you showed the clip of them.
We are.
On their knees with guns at their heads and their hands up as prisoners.
I know, but Mark, nobody died. Nobody died.
No, excuse me. The whole event was not an attempt by the Iranians, to kill Americans. The whole event was staged by the Iranians to upstage the United States and embarrass the United States. And the President of the United States, who expended huge political capital in order to reach an agreement with these people, they were saying to him, "We don't care what you say. We're calling the shots. We're not afraid to do anything, and we want you to apologize." And the Secretary of State, in order to get these guys released, apologized to them. I mean, everybody here, and I think everybody across the United States, was outraged at what happened. Whether it's a 24-hour spectacle, a 48-hour spectacle, doesn't matter.
But Mark,
let me tell you one other thing. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm not there, so I'm talking.
Yeah.
One of the things that this Sheldon was talking about, or Tal was talking about, the conservative agenda. Right. You didn't hear that tonight. You didn't hear the candidates talking about the so-called conservative agenda. They were talking about the economy. They were talking about Obamacare. And these things the American people is upset about. and they talked a lot about the State of the Union address, which was a mockery, which is really an insult to the intelligence, not only of political pundits like yourself, Yael, and Tal and Sheldon, but also to the American
Don't forget
people.
Ami. He's also in studio.
I've got to get going pretty soon here because Chris Christie's executive assistant needs me to walk her back to the hotel. It's very late at night. So you got anything?
No,
You got anything else for me?
No. We're going to move with reaction on tweets. If you can stay for a few minutes, but we don't want to keep a young lady walking alone in the dark back to her hotel. So it's up to you, Mark. But Ami, the reactions came on the web.
As usual, first of all, the Democrats were reacting. Hillary and Sanders took to Twitter. Sanders saying he had a message for Trump. We're not going to hate Latinos or Muslims. We're going to stand together. But let's look at Hillary. Always, taking the lighter side of things and making fun of Republicans. Need a good laugh after watching GOP debate. Catch Hillary on Fallon tonight. Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, Rupert
owner
Murdoch.
of Fox News, a conservative, not very happy with the GOP field, from what I understand. He's a bit, But here he says, all candidates do well.
I'm going to start newly engaged, Rupert Murdoch. Yes.
Married to Jerry Hall, 59-year-old.
I had to put that in.
I'm glad you did. Most effective crew, brilliant debater, but what else? Likability, still important. There's that. Yeah. I think we also have Brian Stelter, who used to be a New York Times correspondent. Now he has a show on CNN as a media analyst. Let's see what he says.
Right.
Trump offers a new slogan for the New York Times. It's the New York Times. They're always wrong. Extreme pundit. Extreme right-wing conservative pundit Ann Coulter. She's always doing showing her rage on Twitter at the GOP debates, Democrats debates. Did you see that one?
And then Ann Coulter. Yeah. What did Ann? There we go.
There was one president on the stage tonight, and 7 who cares debaters. She's of course a Trump supporter.
Wow.
And lastly, The Onion. Let's see a little satire,
please,
if we may. Showing Marco Rubio. Rubio refutes claim he's soft on immigration by dragging an undocumented worker he knocked out cold onto stage. A little picture of him dragging somebody.
Yeah, The Onion, of course, as satire. But to conclude it all, if we're looking just around the table at that GOP debate, it's very, the heated moments, whatnot, but it's crunch time. If you're looking at it as a Democrat, and not just at that stage, when it comes to the Democratic Party, to conclude with you, Sheldon, Hillary and Bernie head-to-head in some ways?
Well, look, Hillary has probably got the the nomination sewed up unless she falters. Right. They mentioned things about the possibility of some court actions, and she'll be traveling between the courthouse and the White House, that sort of stuff. If she doesn't falter, she would get it. I think she's more palatable to the entire population of the United States, to the general voter, and Mark is, I think, wrong on saying that they didn't discuss conservative. Each one was saying, I am more conservative than the next guy. They were all trumpeting things like gun control.
Right.
I'm much more in favor of gun control than the next guy. I would let every baby have a submachine gun. That's the sort of stuff that they were going out with, and that stuff doesn't resonate with the rest of the country.
And time will tell on that. Tal Shalev, just because you're sitting here looking at it from a perspective of the rest of the world, Israel looking at that debate. Well, it's no secret what the administration is hoping to see happen now.
Well, I wouldn't say that. It is true that in 2012 there was a perception that Netanyahu was hoping for a Republican president to enter the White House. I have a different theory. I'm not sure it is necessarily good for Netanyahu to have a Republican enter the White House, especially if it is Donald Trump, who doesn't need any of the Republican money. But I do think that Israel is following very closely both races. And by the way, this debate, Israel, as I said, didn't really take a significant portion of it. So not big news for Israelis today.
No, not big news for Israelis today, but maybe for Iranians. I want to thank you both. Ami, you're locked in studio as we move along.